Hello and welcome back to WMMA Mania, you guys. I am your host, Drake Riggs, bringing you the latest and greatest in everything going on in the world of mixed martial arts pertaining to the women from the week before and the week ahead. Plenty to discuss on this episode 11. As you can imagine, last week we had plenty of events to preview, and now we're going to be recapping them as we get ready for the action coming up. So obviously that entails the big UFC 274 card that went down on Saturday. There was the PFL, which I was there for. Deep Jewels 37 went down, closing up the rear. There was a Bellator 280 as well, just one fight there, which I was unable to catch, so we won't be talking about that as there's so much to cram into this episode, as you can surely imagine. And that was just the recaps that I addressed right there. We'll have a little bit of news, as always. Invicta is back on Wednesday with Invicta FC 47. They got the strawweight title fight going down. Bellator 281 in London. The return of Kana Watanabe. Get the flags out, everybody. In Kana we stand. Pan-Kana Alliance. You know it. She's back. And then UFC Vegas 54 closes things out with three fights. Three pretty important fights, too. So this is going to be a jam-packed episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, whether you're a new face or an old face, we appreciate you all the same. Do not forget to hit that like button, share, subscribe, notification bell, all those things if you haven't already. And if you are on Twitter watching live, go on over to YouTube or Facebook, preferably YouTube, if you want to join in on the live chat discussion, because I cannot see the Twitter comments for whatever reason. So there is your little note. And of course, check out all things on MMAmania.com on a regular basis, of course. So, all right, guys, what is going on, everybody? I see Scott is here. He says, "What up, Drake? Rough fight weekend for me as a fan of Thug Rose and the highlight, but congrats to Esparza and Dumont. Well, they're deserving champions." Very much so, and I'm sure there's a conflict of opinions on that, but it was a rough week for those two, Scott. Alvin is here. Good afternoon, fellow members of the WMA Today community. Mania, Alvin. Mania, we have transitioned. I was truly amazed by the heart, effort, skill, and determination by all fighters. Best wishes to those who were injured and wishing them all well. Alvin is the man. Jimmy says, Hey, what a great Monday. Boy, do I have some things to say about that co-main. Oh, yes, we're going to be spending some time on that for sure. Jin says, hi, Drake and chat. Rose Esparza 2, the banger we wanted and deserved, the fight that elevates all women at MMA to train and fight harder. I can sense sarcasm there, but in a way, I think that's actually a fair and accurate statement. And we'll talk about that here shortly, as I said. Rue is here. Good to see you, Drake. What's the worst take you have seen on Rose versus Carla 2? Oh, boy, that is a tough question. We'll get to that. Hi, Drake. We'll be discussing that Alpha Co-main. Of course, I talk about all the fights always, Centro. Don't worry. As Rain is here, says he's excited to hear a Ghost rant. James is here. What's up? I have a feeling the show is going to be fun. It should be a fun one. It should be a doozy. Have a lot to talk about. Ghost is here. He's excited. Makoto says, hello, do you know why this fight was not on Migu? I normally able to watch every card for free on this app, but this was not there. That is interesting. I don't know. Maybe I would imagine the deal isn't over yet, but I have no explanation. I don't have any inside sources or scoops too much on the workings of the Migu situation there, Makoto. So sorry, I cannot answer that. Rain says, hey, Scott, where are you at? Were you trying to hype this fight every week since it was announced? Didn't work out for us. You did. Oh boy, you guys, don't pick on Scott. Jin says I'd be pretty embarrassed if you tried to. Come on now. Let's not do that. As Centro says, I saw on Morning Combat that they said Rose needs to rematch Carla because we don't see who the better fighter is. What he's taking it. That's probably the worst take I've seen. All right. So to address who asked that earlier, was that Rue? Yeah, that was probably the worst one I've seen. And we'll get into that in a sec. Random Pandemonium is here. Good to see you. I like the profile picture. Very funny. The Stylebender fell asleep during the fight. Some of my friends were falling asleep during the fight as well. Yeah. So anyway, before we get into UFC 274, which we're going to kick off with the title fight, of course, I just want to put a disclaimer out there, and I only want to say this one time. I want to say this one time because I'm sure that the people I'm going to say this to are going to be watching. So if you happen to be one of the people that for some reason, unbeknownst to me, believes that I give a flying fuck about your hatred for Weili and you mention it towards any strawweight fight, I do not care. All right. So leave me alone. Okay. Because I'm a little bit over it. All right. So I want to put that out there. I do not care. You can think whatever you want, even if I disagree with it and everyone else does. I've had enough. All right. So I just had to say that because I'm sure you're watching because you have some kind of issue. All right. So anyway, let's carry on with the show, you guys. UFC 274 recap. I wouldn't say the greatest card. I thought it was all right. I don't think it was as good as kind of the ones we saw recently, but I mean, this fight didn't help. But Rose Namajunas was defeated by Carla Esparza via split decision, 47-48, 49-46, 48-47. As you can see here on the screen, the strike totals very, very low. 38 total to 30 for Carla across all 5 rounds. They both threw about the same, 137, 133. Kind of crazy. Obviously, couple takedowns there. 11 takedown attempts from Carla seems off. She definitely attempted more. And yes, this fight was very, very clearly not great. But I think there was still slightly more action than in, let's say, Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. Both terrible fights. It's kind of like, what's the point in even saying which one was better? But and then even Adesanya versus Romero was also a terrible fight. Like, there have been some bad ones, and this is the freshest one, so everyone says it's the worst. It very well might have been. It was not very action-packed by any means necessary, but there were some things that I really enjoyed and was impressed by. I mean, specifically, it's something that has always been impressive on Carla's part, but like the fact, when she goes for a single leg or just a leg at all, I mean, great blast double that she had in, I think it was what they gave her 2 takedowns here in the 4th, but I think it was like round 2. She hit one really elevated. Rose got her down for a brief second, which is perhaps why they didn't officially count it. But Carla's ability to just glue herself to a leg is just so insane to me. I don't remember which round that was in either. They kind of all blur together, right? Might have been the 3rd, but that moment when she went for the single and just hung on to it, she does not let a leg go. Just very, very, very crazy how she's able to do that. A lifetime of wrestling, I suppose you could say. And here's the thing about this fight, though, right? And I think I even mentioned this to Ghost on fight night, but I said that Dana is going to be very upset if Carla wins the title here because historically, people have found her to be a much more boring fighter than, let's say, Rose. So automatically, the blame and just less likable as a personality, you name it. This is just what people have thought over the years if you've watched MMA in their careers. But most of the blame for this fight was automatically, I expected, to go on to Carla, and I think I've seen it be pretty split. But in my opinion, from watching this fight, Carla was at least trying to initiate more. And I mean, Rose, to get into it, if you watched her post-fight press conference, I do give her the benefit of the doubt. It was very fresh. She was very upset that she lost. But I mean, just listening to what she said, very concerning and very just honestly, blatantly delusional thoughts that were coming out of her. She had some very bad corner advice. Barry, that's maybe why I said that. Pat Barry didn't do a great job on this night. She thought she was up 4 rounds going into the 5th. I mean, there was just a lot wrong with some of the things she said. Again, very fresh, so maybe her mind will change after watching the fight and whatnot. But I mean, believing that defense scores, and she said this was a part of the strategy, the game plan, and that honestly, considering how Carla does fight, which is typically to get you down, and she was able to initiate those sequences in certain moments, it was, I think, a smart game plan and approach from Rose. The problem was, though, that I think she, I don't know, was still too, I don't want to say afraid, but still too worried about the wrestling despite the strategy, because so many of the shots that she threw from distance were not with the intent to land. Like, you could see they were just kind of to keep Carla away and pine out there. A lot of nothing shots that Rose threw. Like, whereas with Carla's, at least she was kind of like moving forward, trying to land. She's the shorter woman in this equation here, right? So she was at least putting effort into landing, whereas Rose's, a lot of her misses were just to put a strike out there. And if you listen to how she talked about it, she thinks that should have won her the fight, which is not a good thing you want to hear. And the fact that the corner kind of didn't help with that either. My goodness. Another great example of why open scoring would be cool. But I mean, as for scores of this fight, how hilarious is that, though? 4 of 19 for each of them in round one. If I was to edge that in one direction, I would have went Carla, but I scored the first round at 10-10. I think we need more 10-10s. I know that it's like damn near impossible for the judges to do that, but I went 10-10 personally because it's like, come on, how much really happened there? Who was more effective? It was practically equal. If I was to edge it to somebody, I guess I'd go Carla, but I 10-10'd it. And then rounds 2, 3, and 4, I gave to Carla as well. Can understand arguments. Again, this wasn't anything insanely impactful, exciting, whatever. Round 5, that was a relatively clear Rose round. Very nice takedown at the end. Why didn't she try something like that sooner? I don't know. Of course, again, the fear of just grappling with Carla, because she got on her back, gave her some flashbacks, I'm sure, in a couple moments there. So this fight was I found it very interesting, honestly. I mean, again, it wasn't great, but watching it, probably will never watch it again, of course. But I feel like I disliked, let's say, Adesanya Romero and Luis Ngannou much more than this fight. Maybe not much more. Let's not say that. But I found it just very interesting to watch it play out. All things considered, the story of the rematch, I think that's why. That's why, right? Like, those other two fights didn't have kind of the history behind it. Whereas, you guys know me, I love a story, and it built into this fight and played out over the course of 5 rounds. So that at least had me more on the edge of my seat than, let's say, those other two fights. None of the ones that I've mentioned were good. Let's clear that up. But yes, this was something. And now it is time for Marina Rodriguez to get her title shot. I don't want to hear anything else about it. There should not be a trilogy fight, because Rose has lost twice to Carla now. This fight sucked. So move on. Move on. So, as Jimmy says, geez, Drake, who ruffled your feathers? Just racists and, people who think I care about things I've told them I don't care about anymore. That's all. The usual suspects. So, Litchfield says, I was expecting a boring fight, but not that. Yes, Litchfield was with me in Texas, actually, and he said he predicted a Carla victory, which, again, as we talked about last week, wasn't a crazy thought. The expectation, though, was just that she'd be able to control Rose a bit more, similar to the first fight. Wasn't able to do that, but still got the job done. So that is it. And all right, I'm seeing a lot of you guys saying stuff to Scott. Are we forgetting the positivity rule? Like, people can be excited for whatever they want, all right? And don't forget, he's also a mod, so knock it off, you guys. All right, I understand there's a lot of divisiveness with a lot of these fights this week, but people are entitled to their own opinions. Jesus Christ. Let's chill out here. And again, same for the people who I addressed at the beginning of the show with the disclaimer. You can have your opinions. Just, I don't care about them. Leave me alone with it. I'm trying to make a positive environment here. And you guys are making it more and more difficult. And I'm a little bit over it. So, Rain says, I saw this on Ghost Twitter, but isn't it ironic that people complain about Whaley getting an instant rematch and called for Esparza to get it before Whaley? That didn't turn out very well, did it? Well, the thought there is, again, and you know, I was in that boat where I prefer logic and meritocracy, right? Of course, we know what the more exciting fight's going to be and what it was. Rose Whaley 2 was a better fight for sure, as every fight really has been. This fight was not good, but for who earned it, you got it. It's a sport. You want this to be a sport, a legitimate sport. Give it to the people who earned it. Carla earned the title shot, and now she's the champion. So there you go. And Go says, here's my question to you, Drake. Why are people complaining about it? It was so bad. Why would anyone want to review it again? That is a great point. That is a very fair question, Ghost. I don't know. Aside from the fact that when a fight like this does happen, it just always makes you want to reevaluate kind of the rules, I think, and how fights are scored, which I guess we've kind of seen. I haven't seen too much complaining about this, honestly, aside from maybe some people that I addressed at the beginning here as well. Like clearly not a robbery. And even if you think Rose won, doesn't really matter, does it? Like everybody lost in the end, except for Carla, who's the champion now. So Go says, I feel like there are better things to do than argue about the result of this fight. Exactly. Rachel says Carla 1, 2, and 4. Okay, so interesting, right? Again, you could score it many ways. Many ways. As Ghost was entertained by the corner advice. Yep, that is fair. Makoto says Whaley versus Joanna 2 for the title. So hyped. Carla gonna have the second shortest title reign in the world. I mean, guys, let's be honest here, though. Let's put some respect on Carla's name, please, because, like, if you think about it, as much as you might dislike her or her fighting style, whatever it is, she is one of the best strawweights of all time. The inaugural Invicta champ, inaugural UFC champ, and just won it for a second time. Only her and Rose have done that in the UFC, but like Carla Esparza has been around, beaten a lot of solid names throughout her career. And I mean, she fought back at the end of Megumi Fuji's career. I mean, goodness, she's been around for a good while. All right. As Random Pandemonium says, I think Conor may be a challenge for her belt. I mean, he will try to get any belt that he can, can't he? So, yeah, this was interesting. I say, as much as I'm all about freshness as well, like I said, it's about giving the title fights and fights to people who have earned it. And even though I do believe that Yan Xiaonan did defeat Martina in her last fight, she ended up getting the win. She's on a great winning streak, hasn't lost since Carla arguably beat Carla when they fought. It's Marina Rodriguez versus Carla 2. That's the fight to make. Andrade making a strong case on Twitter and just with her performance as well. Dana, though, is saying it looks like it will probably be the Whaley versus Joanna 2 winner, which I get it. But again, Marina has earned this. So that is what I think should happen. Do Andrade versus Dern. Winner of Whaley Joanna 2 can fight. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. We will see. We will see. Dun, dun, dun. And yes, Ghost, fair point. Think about Carla re-won the title by not learning new skills, but she still won the title. So kind of impressive in that way that she didn't need to still win it. So even though, again, not like she went through much to do that. And I think she even knows that. So, well, Centro, as he asks, when did we know this fight was going to be bad? I didn't expect it really to be bad. If you were here last week, like it wouldn't have been the most exciting fight if Carla did what she typically does, which is get opponents on the ground and impose her wrestling. Wouldn't have been the most exciting there in theory. I mean, Rose, of course, can threaten with things from the bottom and whatnot, but oh, well, I mean, if you mean in the fight itself, actually, then I guess that would be the point. About 2 minutes in, about 2 minutes in, I would say would have been the point for me, as Ghost says right from the beginning. So, but yeah, going into it ahead of time, I thought, I mean, as we talked about before, potential to be a little bit different than the first fight, which it was, but not in the way we had hoped for. But anyway, as we continue to roll on here, we have a lot to talk about, you guys. Ghost did provide us with a Fan of Punch slideshow breakdown once again for this fight. So strap in for a quick little 3 minutes here as I pull it up. For Carla Esparza versus Rose Namajunas 2. Bet you didn't see that coming. As we look at eliminating angles today. As he says, despite his snarky tweets about Rose Carla 2, and there have been plenty of them, this fight demonstrates a key principle in eliminating angles. Tell us more, sir. He says Rose has taken an outside angle on the tracks. Carla takes a lateral backward step with her rear foot. You can see the little arrow right there. Both fighters are now at 12 o'clock, back on the tracks. Fighters who work angles, quote unquote, do not want to engage head on the tracks, so taking a step back is an excellent tactic. Cruz trying to bump into a southpaw stance and slide down the side of Cejudo's lead leg to acquire an angle. Cejudo slides back to his right, creating space and placing Cruz back at 12 o'clock. Always got to remind me about this one, don't you, Ghost? Cruz attempts to take an outside angle. Oh, and here's the Cody fight, of course. Cruz has to reset after Garbrandt steps back. Garbrandt now has Cruz lined up at 12 o'clock. Right. While Carla Esparza and Rose Namajunas came in with the same strategy of retreat, Zhang Weili came with the strategy to time the step with the tactic of retreat. Weili takes a retreating step from the second Rose fight, as you can see. Weili controls the inside line while Rose steps into range. Jarring low kick lands since Weili's shin makes the connection. The punches are not what's being countered here. It's the step. Next example shows Rose throwing her rear hand. High hand position baits body punch. As soon as Rose steps into range, Weili controls the inside line. Hard low kick on the top of the thigh lands. Carla had no idea what to do when Rose would step out of range. However, Weili did a good job attacking when Rose would not engage. Weili knows that Rose is going to step into range as she preps her low kick. She knows Rose has to retreat her lead leg. Weili finds a beautiful low kick on the path of Rose's retreating leg. Good form. Weili used a simple mechanical technique that every fighter learns on their first day in two very different contexts, as a counter and as a lead. Why do you think that people at MMA Media believe that working angles, quote unquote, changing position, is the best way of fighting? Well, Ghost, I think the answer to that is because more often than not, it works, especially against perhaps the more aggressive fighter, which in the case of, let's say, Carla Rose 2, like you were saying, there was very little aggression from anybody there. So more often than not, pans out. If you don't know how to work with it, and many do not, look at essentially all of Dom's career, since you highlighted him and his losses there, which is totally fair because it did work, right? But other than that, if you can't figure it out, why change it? I suppose. As James says, did you see Dana smile right before he gave Carla the belt? I actually thought that was cool. I mean, he was probably just like, all right, this is happening. So, and goes to sorry, Drake, but Cruz is one of the best at taking angles. Yes, I do. Understandable indeed. And it makes sense. This intro is all about it. And Jin says angles didn't work well against Whaley, did it? So anyway, let's move along. Plenty still to talk about. That was just the first fight, which I knew we would spend plenty of time on, but there were other ones, such as Macy Chaisan defeating Norma Dumont via split decision. This was a bit of a weird one. 30-27, 28-29. And what is the last one there? Also 30-27. Yeah, this was a little bit of a bummer from our respective Norma Dumont supporter seats, right? But Macy, my goodness, she tired out a whole bunch there at the very end of this fight. Norma did miss weight by also half pound, like Charles Oliveira. So just an overall bummer this fight turned into on weigh-in day. And I mean, essentially, in my opinion, this kind of turned into Macy was just able to bully Norma, which was pretty unexpected. I mean, she is very large. She is a large, generally bantamweight, and then at featherweight that still carries over. But yeah, just kind of nullified Norma's game for the most part with her grappling against the cage. A lot of the fight took place there, as you can see in the rounds 2 and 3. I mean, goodness, almost the entire round she had control there. 4-19 in round 3, 3-13 in the second. So yeah, it wasn't too memorable. Like I said, I didn't think this card was actually that great overall, honestly. But yeah. As Jersey says, wow, just got here. Great breakdown. And hi, Ghost and Drake. Good to see you, Jersey. Of course. So we won't spend too much time on these because, again, I want to get through everything today as much as we can. So Norma, bounce back, hopefully. And we'll see what is next for Macy as well. And then at flyweight, Tracy Cortez got the job done against Melissa Gatto. Unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. Pretty easy one to score. Story of this fight was essentially Melissa Gatto being too comfortable on her back and willing to play from guard against Tracy Cortez, who was a superior wrestler the whole time. And I mean, that this is exactly kind of how the fight should have played out for Tracy to win. Like we talked about last week, utilize your wrestling. You're going to be, playing with fire a little bit with some submission attempts from Gatto, which we definitely saw. Very crafty there, but she was a little bit too comfortable, and it cost her. And on the feet, I think she had the edge. That was for sure. So, I mean, this was exactly how Tracy should have won if she was to win, and she did. So, essentially, that's all there was to that one as well. Still a bright future, I think, for Melissa Gatto. She will be back, still young. And then Tracy, a good win. I'm still not super sold on her, but she's getting the job done. So, hey, as James says, no Gatto lost, but still tuned in Practical Jokers, 9 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, even though Joe Gatto is God as well. Citra says, why was Norma so inactive? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she just got worried about the size difference in the grappling after so long. I don't know. It was definitely a weird performance from her. Unfortunately. Good question, though. And so, as for the last fight here, which was Lupita Godinez, Lupi, defeating Ariane Carlosi via unanimous decision, 30-27 and 2 30-26s. I actually have yet to see this fight. I was getting home around the time that the card was starting, so I have yet to still see it. I haven't got around to it, but holy shit, like looking at the numbers and I mean just the scorecards, this was a complete domination from Lupi, so I am very fascinated to watch this. She hit 8 takedowns according to the numbers, landed 130 of 173 strikes to Carnelossi only landing 23. I mean, she completely dominated her, which I did not expect that if you were here last week. So I'm very fascinated to go back and watch this one. But good job, Loopy. That's a great win to have. So my goodness, very impressive to read about. I'm sure I'll be even more impressed to watch. So that is interesting. As Kimball is here, she says, "Hi, Drake and Ghost. One thing I have struggled with before my first BJ class is anxiety. I have a bit of social anxiety, and the thoughts of drilling with someone unknown sends adrenaline levels through the roof. Totally fair. I mean, strangers, right?" As Kimball says, "Drake, do you get this when you interview people? Ghost, have you heard of this? Any tricks to help?" Yes, Kimball. Not as badly anymore. I've gotten a lot better about it over time. You know, repetition always helps. But yes, in the beginning, the anxiety and nerves for interviews. I mean, it took me a while until it's kind of simmered and I've been able to control it a bit. But I remember kind of like I interviewed Kelvin, I think, before the Adesanya fight, and that was kind of like the first moment I remember not being nervous for an interview. And I don't know why I wasn't for that one because Kelvin's a decent name, and I've been watching his entire career pretty much. But before that, and it's still certain fighters, usually ones that I like to watch a lot rather than big names, I'll be super nervous for and feel exactly what you're talking about. But I've gotten a lot better about it now. It used to be very bad, very crippling, like sweating in the last 30 minutes before we're about to talk. That would usually get me pretty good there. So I understand where you're coming from, even though you're talking about the BJJ there. And I mean, that's a new thing for you too. So it's like you get nervous and, anxious because you care about it, right? So you want to be good. You want to make nice first impressions, whatever it may be. So Ghost sharing his experience says, "Yes, I've heard of it. I have it. LOL. And I know many hardened fighters that still have it. I mean, look at Cowboy Cerrone. He talks about being nervous for every fight, despite all them that he's had. Best thing that helps is don't go there to win. Go there to work on something specific. That's true. That's putting pressure on yourself in that regard. Limiting that pressure is always good. Treating it like something less serious." And that goes says, "When you roll or spar, look at it as an exchange of information rather than a competition." That is fantastic advice. Yeah, that is a great, I think, great advice from Ghost. Very well said. And Cintro says, "Drake, you're so comfortable during your interviews, though. I appreciate that greatly, man. I try to be just as relaxed as I can and, just talk, just have a conversation rather than an interview. I hate to make it feel like an interview. So it's taken years of practice to get that down. And I will say, speaking of that, like, here, I'll give you a story time real quick because shameless plugs here. But this past week, I did speak to Joanna Jacek and Kana Watanabe, who you guys didn't whip the flags out when I said that earlier. Come on, shame on you guys. But both of those interviews were done in very unique situations where I was a little bit, I probably shouldn't admit this kind of thing, but I was fairly hungover a little bit for the Joanna one. So going into that, it kind of, eliminates that pressure of caring so much. But for that one, I thought it was great. It was a very fun chat. Joanna makes it easy. I've talked to her before, so I guess that helps. But in those kind of moments, I feel like I'm my most carefree and loosest. So look forward to that interview, guys. I think you will all specifically enjoy it because we, of course, spoke about the Whaley fight, and she had some very nice and interesting things to say that I think you guys will very much enjoy. It was just a very good chat with Joanna. She is always fun to talk to, but it was a good one. Just about 15 minutes, and it'll be dropping actually today. So at about 2:30 Pacific time here after the show, that'll be coming out. Look forward to that. Had a little bit of technical difficulties on the video part, but it was a good, fun one. I felt very, very good about that. And then Kana, of course, always great. That one I did right after the PFL event actually ended. So I was very exhausted, but still made it work and had enough energy to have a fun time with Kana. And we talked plenty about Dragon Ball and fun things like that. So they both turned out very well. They both turned out very well. So look forward to those. I think they'll drop the Kana one tomorrow, but Joanna will be coming today. I think you guys will like both of them. So I appreciate the compliments so much. As James says, yeah, Drake, all your videos awesome. I appreciate that so much, man. And this is all the ones I've seen. Yes, definitely not all of them are awesome. That is for sure. But as Kimball says, thank you very much for sharing your experience. I think it will help me. Yeah, I think it's great advice, Kimball. Just from my experience and things as well. It's if you want to relieve pressure, you got to eliminate that competition aspect, perhaps. I think so. That's a very good point from Ghost. As Rue says, will you also interview the second half of that fight like Whaley? I would love to. I would love to, Rue. I've told you guys I've been trying, but not so sure how soon that will happen, if it can happen too soon. As I don't know if Whaley likes to do too much media anymore these days, for decent reason, I suppose. And Ghost says Kazushi Kana. Very true. That she is. So anyway, that was UFC 274. You guys, we had other fights, as I mentioned. My goodness, we're still on the recaps as we're at the 36-minute mark. So let's get into what I said I was doing this past week, which was the PFL 2022 PFL 3. Silly names, I know. Technically, why not? Let's just call this PFL 23 because that is which number it is in the season, excluding Challenger Series, which is fair, I think. But PFL 3 2022 happened. And pretty all right card, pretty great main card, that is for sure. So we will start from the top to the bottom as we usually do on the recaps. Kayla Harrison got it done. A unanimous decision against Marina Makhnatkina. Her third decision of her career, the second opponent she hasn't been able to finish. And this fight, honestly, went about kind of as I expected. Also, a very not very exciting fight. Essentially, the key to this fight was Kayla's her strength was the big difference here. I don't know so much about the size being it, but I'm sure that helps a little bit. Marina has fought at featherweight before. I don't know if she's ever made to 135, but she has been a featherweight prior to PFL. Threatened with some knee bars in this fight. Wasn't very active on the feet. Neither of them were really. It was mostly Kayla holding her against the cage, trying to get some takedowns. Got some good ones, of course, but some minimal ground and pound in there. Really not too much to say about this one either, aside from the fact that it really doesn't help Kayla look like a monster or anything like that. And I mean, against an opponent like Marina, who has, like I told you guys, an interesting amount of experience outside of MMA specifically, but then in MMA with the Bellator and whatnot, who she has fought. Expected her to put up a fight in. She survived, which is better than most. Right? So season's off to an interesting start. That is for sure. As we continue on to Larissa Pacheco smashing poor Zamzagul Fizlanova, which that was a bummer. I would have liked to see more from Zamzagul, but Larissa Pacheco was an absolute monster at 155 pounds. And I mean, I guess it should have gone this way again. Looking at it last week, Zamzagul, her opponents in competition has not been great back home. Larissa Pacheco has only lost to Kayla since being in the UFC. And then even in the UFC, she lost to some pretty good people. So like Larissa generally beats who she's supposed to beat and does so these days in very impressive fashion, just completely crumpled poor Zamzagul in that first round. 100 minute and 25, takes the lead 6 points in the lightweight standings. Then the surprise of the night, perhaps, at least for me, was Jenna Fabian beating Julia Budd. Unanimous decision. Jenna missed weight, though, by 5 pounds. So she has minus a point. Julia still gets 3. Very weird how they kind of are doing that with the system. I don't know if I agree with it. It makes things very weird. Of course, make weight. That's it's a big, big hit. But yeah, Julia Budd's first loss to a non-GOAT. And she started off very strong in this fight. Good first round, won that one. And then the last two was very clear. Just very inactive. And then even lost in some grappling exchanges against Jenna, who I will say, though, like, she looked significantly bigger than Julia. It was very surprising. Like, I didn't see it at the weigh-ins, but on fight night, Jenna looked really big compared to Julia, like a very clear size advantage. And she's just a big woman, having stood next to both of them. I guess I shouldn't have been that surprised, but big upset. Definitely did not see that coming. Julia, I don't know. She's something with this. She gets inactive in some fights in like very random situations. Like she was totally fine against Caitlin, very inactive against Diana Silva in what was that? Was that her last Bellator fight? And then in this one in rounds 2 and 3, but started off all right in the first round. I just I don't know what has been going on with her in that regard. As we carry on to probably maybe the fight of the night, this or the co-main event, perhaps. But I mean, this one is more competitive. Elena Kolesnik getting the split decision over Abby Montez. I scored this one for Abby, I think 1-3. I'd have to go back and look at the cards, but it was a pretty high-paced affair. Abby went to brawl in this one, went to war, as she said she would. Despite probably would have been a better idea, certainly to utilize her grappling, which got her the win against Clarissa Shields. And as we know, Elena Kolesnik, not the most savvy of grapplers. So Abby, I think, in the end, cost her in this one. But it was a very fun fight. They were throwing down, landed some big shots against the cage and just pretty much everywhere the fight went. Kolesnik obviously fighting for something much bigger than just her career. It was very, very emotional after the fight. So hard not to feel good for her. But I do believe Abby should have got the win in this one. She is still very young. She will be back. Very exciting, fun fighter. Love me some Abby Montez. And again, just should have went to the grappling a bit more, and that one would have secured it. And then in the opening fight of the night, Martina Yanzrova defeated Vanessa Mello. Pretty much picked her apart for 3 rounds. No surprise there. Vanessa Mello, don't know what she was really doing in this tournament. Said that from the beginning. One of the weird additions this year. Yanzrova, sharp, solid striker, though. That was what that was. Shouldn't have gone any different way as Vanessa Mello, former UFC bantamweight who couldn't make bantamweight. But yeah. So that was PFL 2022-3. 2022 PFL 3 from Texas, whatever you want to call it. So Sharon says, hello, Drake, the BTL King. That is right, the champ. And just speaking of that, I should be defending my title this week. I haven't talked to Mike yet, but after what went down last week and silly old Jed calling me out at the beginning of the show and then going on to lose, what a clown this guy is, huh? Then losing. At least get a win if you're going to come after the king. Am I right? So should be potentially defending against Mr. Ben Duffy this week, but we will see if that is not confirmed. I'm looking to defend the title. You guys know this. So Jed making very baseless accusations and claims. How dare he? And then he doesn't even win. As Drake says, what do you think of people that make fun of fan bases? I think it's fair, Jimmy. I mean, I make fun of the Nick Diaz and the both of the Diaz brothers fan bases. They are just the absolute worst, most delusional fans that there are, and I feel very bad for them. So it is fair. Some fan bases are insane. As Go says, Kazushi Queen, I saw Kayla like that when you mentioned it during an interview. Yes, she does it like that nickname. So I'm trying to we're trying to get that to stick. So every time I mention it, she gets a kick out of it. So yes, that was fun. That was just on the spot. That just came to me. So I'm proud of that one. As Alvin says, I don't understand why we have to be angry about performances. Fighters do their best, and that's all we can ask for. Can we please be respectful to each other? Yes, Alvin, always a good reminder. Thank you, sir. As Go says, all these contenders ducking Drake. Very true. Says, even though we don't know how the negotiations are. Yes, they are, though. I haven't been contacted since. I feel like Francis Ngannou getting totally sideswiped over here. At least they didn't make an interim title. Then I'd be pissed. Then I'd be real mad. As Yuna is here, good to see you, Yuna. She says, hi, Drake. I have been following John Yanko and saw that people are making fun of him. I do not think that is right. What are your thoughts? Yeah, that's that's not cool. I haven't seen any of that, Yuna. That's unfortunate, though. I mean, you got to respect the guy. I know some of you have not agreed with his opinions in the past, but John, friend of mine, big props to him. I mean, going to Thailand for 6 months away from his family to take a fight, just to take a fight. Like, he's not going to be a fighter, you guys, but like to go through the commitment of a training camp and all that, like, mad respect to him. To move away to do that. So that's not cool. That's not cool. And I mean, that's really silly of people to do, especially I'm sure they made fun of Casey too, but like you can't do one over the other. Like, come on now. As Go says, I think that's daft to make fun of someone who just started training. I always root for people that just start training. And I mean, yeah, like, you're not going to be great right away. I mean, maybe unless you're some crazy prodigy, but guy's 40, like, what do you expect? Of course, he's not going to be throwing beautiful spinning wheel kicks or anything insane right out the gate or whatever, but you got to respect them for trying. He says they're doing something new, challenging themselves, and to get gatekeeper, that is just odd and bad behavior. Yeah, there you go. And James, yeah, I know Jed calling me out. I demolished him 60-40 to his ass. It'll be even greater next time if he gets that opportunity. Guy's got to win. I only fight winners. Random Pandemonium says Conor's fan base has to be most delusional. I mean, that's a good one. I think they've died down a little bit since he started losing, but that's a great shout. I still think the Diaz fans are the absolute worst, though. But of course, yeah, Conor's a good shout there. Rain says, I mean, I respect him for doing it, and I had a beef with his takes. Yeah. See, that's fair. I mean, of course, you cannot agree with the guy, but I feel like you got to respect him doing that. And if not, you're just a straight up hater. So, okay. That was PFL. For the time being, they won't be back until June 17th in Atlanta. So, might go to that. Might go. This past week, you guys, was very exhausting. Very much burnt me out. So glad to have a break here, but we will see if we do make it out and down to Atlanta. So Jimmy says, was that the biggest landslide win on BTL? I think it's got to be up there, but I'm pretty sure, funny enough, that in this last one with Ben, that Jed lost 60-40 again. So he just sucks. That's just how it is. So, yeah, it's all in good fun, Alvin. Don't worry. As we move on to Deep Jewels 37, have yet to see this card, but of course, I've seen the results. This was what I think this was the night of 274. I just could not. All over the place, you guys. Very tough to keep up, but we do have the play-by-play results and whatnot from our good friend over at MA Rising, Mr. Robert Sargent. So we'll pull up his article real quick, just looking at it. Starting off from the top, as Rin Nakai did defeat Shizuka Sugiyama via first round armbar, 453, so close for Shizuka to escape, but Rin becomes the inaugural flyweight champion of Deep Jewels. We knew it was going to be one of them, and so, I mean, we should probably bounce down to earlier in the night, which Rin Nakai did defeat Taya by an armbar as well at the end of round 2, though, to get to the finals, whereas Shizuka got a bye because Kuriyama missed weight. I mean, same result would have happened. She just didn't have to fight for it. So Rin Nakai is now the champ. How about that? It was going to be one of them too. Curious to see how this one looked. As you can see here, a quick read from Mr. Sargent. Sugiyama lands an early left hook, and Nakai settles for a clinch after briefly working for a single leg takedown. Sugiyama counters with knees and breaks free. She lands a body kick, but Nakai scores a double leg takedown and immediately attacks with an armbar. Sugiyama defends, so Nakai gives up on the armbar and moves to mount. Problematic. Sugiyama gets back to half guard, and Nakai then passes side control. She locks on one more armbar. At this time, referee Uematsu intervenes to wave off the fight. So that's sounds like no tap there, which I hope is not the case, Robert. But we'll have to watch the fight ourselves. Either way, congrats to Rin. She got the job done. In the co-main event, Sarioshima defends against the 17-year-old Mori Suda. Not very surprising there. As we talked about last week, it was a matter of experience versus inexperience. A very bright prospect getting a very early title shot. As sounds like she did pretty decently, though, as Suda hurts Oshima with an early front kick, but Oshima takes her down with an Osotogari throw and passes to half guard. She uses the Kimura to improve her position and moves to side control. Suda tries to scramble from the bottom, but Oshima maintains her grip on the Kimura. The hold gets tighter on Suda's arm, and referee Fukuda steps in. All right, I think that Robert maybe just doesn't say that they tap, because I would assume in that case, Mori probably tapped. But Sarioshima back in the win column after that upset against Hime. Good for her. Excited to see that one. Only 2 minutes and 58 seconds in a long was that fight. So, and then King Reina actually loses pretty decisively here, 30-26 on 4 judge scorecards and a 29-28. Well, what, 3 30-26s, 1 30-27, and 29-28. As if you don't know, Deep will use 5 judges for, I think, just title fights. Still a little bit confused about that sometimes, but Yoko Higashi gets revenge in their rematch and becomes the inaugural Deep Jewels featherweight champ. So how about that? King Reina chokes in the fight that was supposed to be hers to win. So that's a bummer for her. And Mika Nagano takes out the young Kate Lotus. Of course, the savvy veteran finds a guillotine. Round 2, 57 seconds in. Improves that record to a lofty 17-12-1. Be a good way to ride off into the sunset if you're Mika, but who knows? Yamakaze and Shibasai, decision there. Yeah, just 3 judges in the non-title fight. So yeah, 5 judges for title fights is kind of what I thought there, as well as the tournament fights, I believe. Then we had amateurs. Okutomi, decision against Akagi, however you want to pronounce it. So yeah, that was Deep Jewels 37. It'll be interesting to see where we go from here for all the winners. Of course, Sarioshima maybe get back in Ryzen after this one, defend the title against Hime, who beat her. I mean, that still makes sense to me. Why not do that? So poor Mori Suda gets kind of rushed there. But Sharon says, what do you think of Whaley work with Loma Luke Bunmei? I saw them take a pic together. Yeah, cool. I mean, good person to train your Muay Thai with and exchange techniques. No problem there. But Loma definitely very small. And it just shows you how small she really is compared to some of these elites. As Bruce says, how do you think Izawa would do against Del Boni? Do quite well. I mean, that grappling would be the difference maker in that one. Even though we've seen takedown defense of Del Boni is quite good, I think that Seka sets up her takedowns much better than Alicia Zappatella, and she's also much bigger than Alicia Zappatella, as many are. So I would favor Seka in that one, of course, but Del Boni definitely has striking advantage. It'd be a very fun matchup. I think that would be very cool to see next. But again, we'd only see that in Invicta at the moment, as Del Boni does not want to go compete in Ryzen or Japan, anywhere like that. So that'd be a good one, though. Seka, going to be hard to beat that woman. My goodness. As Ghost has kind of called this chat definitely having a field day with the Rose Carla 2 aftermath. Yes, that is true. As Pandemonium says, shout out to the Mulkey brothers, Bill and Randy, Mulkey Mania forever. I'm not sure who those are, so is that bad of me? But shout out to them regardless, hopefully. Hopefully good people. As Sintra says, Oshima versus Ozawa, make it happen. Izawa, I mean. You could. You very well could, Sintro. But I don't know. That I feel like Sayori and he may need to have a rematch, and she has to kind of clear that up first. That kind of throws a wrench, in my opinion. You certainly could do this. It very well could happen next. But yeah, there's some options for Seka. And yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tricky. I'll have to look at like the entire rankings later. But Jamie says, would you be interested in Hamasaki versus Awa 3? The second fight was so good. Of course, I think it would be a great fight to see, but going by logic, matchmaking, meritocracy, all that, what makes sense. That fight, fortunately, does not make sense at the moment, Jimmy. Like, um, she lost twice pretty convincingly. Did Hamasaki, as great as it was? Yeah, from a fun factor, of course, I'd love to see it, but I don't think it makes sense just yet. As Zhao is here, so I love Drake, so cool and laid back. Oh, you're too kind. Stop it, Zhao. Thank you for tuning in. As I'm holding back a sneeze. Oh, as Rue says, I saw that on IG. I saw on IG that Whaley was very hyped for Rose vs. Scholar 2. Did you see that and find it funny? I think Ghost told me about it, but I did not see it. And no, I mean, it's not funny. What do you expect? It's the title fight in her division. Like, of course she's going to be excited for it. Every fighter in the division was, I'm sure. Like, it's not funny. It's just like, what do you expect? As Ghost says, I'd love to see Hamasaki for Zawa 3. Just awesome stuff from both. Yes, it would. It's always going to be fun between those two. That's for sure. But it just doesn't make sense at the moment. So, all right, let's breeze through the news now because, my goodness, we're getting tight here. I knew it would be. So, real quick, at strawweight, we have Sam Hughes, the Sam Page, taking on Elise Reed, UFC Vegas 55 on May 21st. Fine fight. I mean, Sam Hughes coming off her first UFC win. Same with Elise Reed over Corey McKenna. Excuse me. Both kind of in the same boat in the division right now. Fight makes sense. Should be fine. A decent test for both of them. Have no problems with that. So there we are. Don't have too much to say about it. Also at strawweight, Miranda Granger, speaking of Corey McKenna, added to UFC the fight night that is on August 6th. Location to be determined. Miranda Granger coming back after a decent layoff, right? She hasn't fought since the Lemos loss, I don't think, which no shame in that one, obviously in hindsight. And Corey McKenna trying to stay as active as she can, I suppose, after some time away and the misfortune and the losses, whatnot. So I think this fight also fair matchmaking. Granger coming back into the mix should be fun on the ground, on the feet. We'll have to wait and see what improvements Granger has maybe made since then. But no problems with that one either. Is what it is. Strawweight's on the come up, looking to make their names. But this one, though, here we are again. The UFC is not wanting to. Not listening to me. At strawweight still, Jessica Penne versus Brianna Fortino, formerly Brianna Van Buren, BVB, the former Invicta champ, strawweight champ that is, on June 6th at the UFC Fight Night. Location to be determined. They're going at it. Two former Invicta champs, really. Jessica Penne, former atomweight champ, inaugural atomweight champ, I believe, right? I'm pretty sure she was the very first one. Got to remember my history here. But this fight should be fun, in theory, on paper. Brianna coming back after motherhood, hasn't fought since the Tisha loss. Very, very high ceiling, I think, at least prior. We'll see how she looks after going through the layoff and the bodily transformations, all that. And then Jessica Penne on a roll here since coming back. Had some bad luck losing out on the Luana Pinheiro fight for, I think, reasons on both ends there. They tried to book it like twice. Guess it's just not meant to be. I like this matchup. Should be very fun. Penne's jiu-jitsu and grappling just very, very, very good. Love watching her. Striking has improved over the years gradually. Fortino, very strong wrestler. But another one where why they gotta lose, huh? Why does somebody gotta lose here? That's what I don't like about it. But otherwise, I think it should be a very fun matchup. Again, if BVB, I'm still going to call her that, if she can return to form, I'm going to make it a very interesting fight. So I still want to see Jin versus Jessica. But if she wins this one, then I think we're probably past that. Depends on how Jin's next fight goes, which is coming up here in like 2 weeks, I think. Either way, yeah, that one is a bittersweet one, I would say. And then at flyweight, Ji-Yeon Kim gets another shot as she takes on Maria Agapova at UFC 277 on July 30th. No location for that one yet either, but pay-per-view event. Ji-Yeon Kim, I mean, tough skid right now, but because of the entertainment factor, I think in the last fight, that's what has kept her around here. And Agapova, of course, coming off the grudge match defeat to Marina Moroz. So here we are. This fight is definitely much more favorable for Agapova, who won't have to worry about getting out grappled whatsoever. Ji-yeon Kim has a hell of a chin on her. This should actually be pretty fun and all over the place for as long as it lasts. If Ji-yeon Kim's chin can hold up long enough for Agapova to tire out, then she'll be fine and dandy. In theory, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that one is just all right as well. So not mad really at any of those matchups. They all have some good logic behind them, except for maybe Penne and Van Buren. But oh well, what you gonna do? So let's get the news tab out of here now as we get ready for the previews. My goodness, gonna have to make these good and quick. As Ghost says, Sam Hughes versus Elise Reed. Hard to be positive about this one. Well, should be something. Cintra says, what do you mean? No shame in that loss. I hear that a lot, but don't really understand. Because the person they lost to is really good. Like, no shame in that loss because it's somebody who, all right, I understand why you lost to them because that's how talented they are, right? So that's what that phrase kind of means. As Jersey says, just saw your email. As always, very well thought out response. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Jersey. No problem at all. Appreciate the interest. As Bruce says, hey, isn't G also at Bangtao? Would it help her to be working out with Whaley as well? Yeah, I would imagine it would certainly help. And I'm pretty sure she is there at the moment. I think I saw her on somebody's story recently. So yes, I believe you're right about that, Rue. And I'm sure Ghost would know as well. So, all right, let's get to these previews. We got a lot to take in here. Try and get it done in 30 minutes so I can get prepped for the rest of the day. As we have Invicta FC 47. Why did I say 42? 47 is on Wednesday. Invicta is back with the title fight that kind of drives me crazy. Very happy to see Emily Ducote back defending her title, but it's against Alicia Zappitella, which is just absurd and ridiculous. Stupid. If I'm going to be honest, I don't like it. You guys know how I feel about this main event matchup. Happy to see Emily Ducote fight for sure. And I'm generally happy to see Zappitella fight as well. But this matchup is just ridiculous. Undeserved. You name it. I mean, Zappitella, fresh off the loss to Delboni at atomweight, comes up, gets a strawweight title fight here against a very surging, very good looking Emily Ducote, very dangerous Ducote at the moment, who of course had that phenomenal knockout against Danielle Taylor. Very strong striker, very solid takedown defense. I just don't see how this fight doesn't look practically identical to this last Delboni fight that Zappitella had. Except the only difference will be that Ducote, a little bit more power and more likely to find a finish here. Puts her combinations together beautifully, as we know and have seen. Obviously, evidenced by that last fight as well, which was a master classing, if you will. I just struggle to see Zappitella find much success here. Her best chance is to get Ducote to the ground, which she's got to set that up to get inside on Ducote, and I just don't see how she does it at her length disadvantages and her striking incapabilities in comparison to Ducote. Like, this could be fairly Bull Matador-ish, but I see it being a rough go for Half Pint. I don't know. I feel like this is very... I'll be stunned if this doesn't look, again, almost exactly the same as Delboni Zappitella 2. Because Ducote has really been working on that takedown defense since the Kanako fight. So, and yeah, I mean, that's really just kind of what it is. I think it's very, very obvious to me. Could always be wrong for sure. I don't know everything. I really do not. Co-main event, Courtney King, Chelsea Chandler. Good to see Chelsea Chandler back, who is very good featherweight prospect. Courtney King, I don't think we've seen her fight since the Kayla Harrison loss. Chelsea Chandler, bit of a monster. Just absolutely destroyed Liv Parker. I believe that was her last fight as well. Has shown some issues in the grappling, so that could be a point of contention there against Courtney, who could look to get to the ground. But Chelsea Chandler is a finisher, should have the advantages mostly everywhere for the most part, aside from maybe, the potential wrestling exchanges. Lindsay Vanzant, Jillian DeCourse rematch. Looking forward to that one. Jillian, of course, a fun follow and personality on Twitter. Like I said, looking to have her be a guest here on the show one of these episodes, but she's been training, obviously, so that's been a struggle. Lindsay Vanzant, someone who works very well from range, looked great in that tournament, the Phoenix tournament, until she ran into Del Boney. I believe it was Del Boney, right? Looked much improved, fighting several times in a night. Lindsay Vanzant is always a gamer. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen Jillian as well, so that one should be interesting. It's a rematch from, I think, their amateur days as well. Janessa Moranjan, also back. Liana Perosine. It's been a while since we've seen Janessa. She really needs a win, really does, and this is at flyweight, so struggled a bit with strawweight at some points there. Of course, also lost to the champ in Ducote. Been submitted by Zhandiroba. Been a rough go a little bit. Montserrat Ruiz. And Perosine, I don't think we've seen her, at least in Invicta, since she lost to Kanako as well. So a lot of these gals fighting around each other and now up a different weight. Serena De Jesus is back, a former guest of WMA Today, taking on Brittany Cloudy, who is a very solid boxer, fun fighter to watch. Late notice, I think, for Serena, if I'm remembering. Fatima Klein, Sydney Trio, Jennifer Chang, and Alyssa Linduska early on there. So this is a very fun, solid Invicta card, I think. So I'm looking forward to it overall, top to bottom. And I am also looking forward to the main event, as much as I disagree with the matchup itself being made. Of course, I'm looking forward to seeing Emily Ducote in action. So, and same with most of these ladies. So, yeah. As Jersey says, is Invicta a good way for fighters to get into the UFC, or is it a promotion that stands on its own? I mean, it has been, Jersey. It has been a good way for fighters to get into the UFC in the past, and I think it still is, despite them not being on Fight Pass anymore. It still is and can be. I mean, if you look at this entire season of The Ultimate Fighter 30, if you guys are watching, which I did not watch the first episode, admittedly, I mean, the entire flyweight cast is pretty much Invicta fighters. So yes, it is still a good way. But they want to stand on their own more, but that's been tricky recently. So, as Rue says, why does Dakota get this match? Well, she's the champ. You think you got that reversed there, Rue. Zapatella is the question there. And my only thought would be she's the only logic, the best they could come with right now, who's made weight recently. Like Liz Tracy was the other option, but she hasn't made weight. So yeah, as James says, was there anyone else to fight Emily at strawweight? As I pretty much just said, it seemed like only Liz Tracy for Emily right now, but she's been missing weight. So as Jimmy says, should Zap try to catch the kicks of Dakota? That would be a great idea. That would be definitely, Jimmy, a very smart move from Zapatella. I think, yeah, that would be the best plan of approach for her, is to fight patiently and kind of try and let Dakota come to her and fight off counters and trying to catch those kicks, like you said, but very likely not going to be how she does it. And appreciate you, Rain, as well, asking for my sake. Don't worry, we'll get it done. I'm a professional, man. I can do this. As James says, would you ever do a Q&A on your own channel again? Yes, I definitely plan to. It's just kind of like, whenever if I feel like it and have some time, kind of thing, James. But yeah, I definitely plan to. I wanted to, I think it was you talking to you or somebody about, I want to do more of a kind of gaming focused one once, and maybe not play something again like we tried to that one time with Pat. But yeah, I certainly plan on doing more other types of Q&As and whatnot. So for sure. As James says, Jimmy, you make that sound easy to catch kicks. That is also true. Not the easiest thing, but great in theory. So, all right. Invicta 47, going to be fun. Kicking things off on a Wednesday is always fun in the fight week. as we move along to Bellator 281, get the flags out in London. Denise Kiholtz is taking on Kana Watanabe, welcoming back Kazushi Kana, Queen Kana, Pan Kana Alliance in London. Her first fight since her first defeat. So sad. Nearly a year ago. How crazy is that, you guys, to think that the Liz Carmouche fight was almost a year ago now? My goodness. So both coming off losses to, the fighters, the champions, Juliana Velazquez and Liz Carmouche. Split decision there for Denise. I know a lot of people thought that she won that fight. Steve thought she won that fight. If you go back to that time in the show, both 33, 3-inch advantage for Kana in the height department. Both have judo black belts, but Denise Kiholtz has a very solid kickboxing resume as well. And she's the former, I guess still technically, Bellator kickboxing champion. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this fight plays out, all things considered. And Kana, I think Ghost is going to love to hear this. I'm going to give you guys spoilers on the chat with Kana, who I spoke to on Friday night, Saturday morning. Again, we'll be looking to drop that tomorrow. She seemed very kind of aware of her striking issues and deficiencies. Like when I asked her about what her biggest takeaways were for the Carmouche loss, and just kind of in general, it helped her realize, she said that, when she gets hit, she generally just backs straight up, just straight backwards, and kind of understood how she doesn't take those punches very well. And so I'm very curious to see the improvements and adjustments she's made in that area, sounding so aware and taking the time that she has taken since that fight, 10 months, as you can see right there, to work on her striking and also recover from the surgery and broken orbital that she suffered from that fight. So Kana always improving and working on her strengths with the judo as well. So she'll always have that in the back pocket, and her setups, like, it was very nice to hear from the stuff that she was saying. So like, if she can implement that, we're going to have an even scarier Kana. So like, this could hopefully, in theory, be one of those cases where a loss ends up being the best thing for a fighter. And that's how it is sounding to me from what Kana said. Again, you can say all you want and we'll see how it plays out in there, but very optimistic for kind of the things that she was saying. And against Denise Kiholtz, that's very important. She is Miss Dynamite for a reason, packs some serious punch, great technique, very, very good striker. Will have the advantage in this fight. I think no matter what improvements Kana has made, should look to keep her away for the most part. But again, Denise does have the judo background as well, can submit you, can hang in that area, but she's going to be smaller and I don't think as strong. So that will play a part there, I think, for Kana, if it gets into those clinch positions and, they can exchange some judo techniques, which will be really fun. Like, this matchup is pretty awesome, really. And especially if Kana can show off those striking improvements, which I'm very excited to see. So ultimately, I think her strength could be a big X factor if it gets to where she ultimately needs it to be. Like, it's no problem for her to mess around with the judo, I don't think. Safe to say she's probably the better, more accomplished judoka. I don't really know exactly of Denise's. I think she might have some gold medals too and whatnot. She's a very talented athlete, but it's a very interesting fight. This matchup is quite a doozy here. So there we are. There's the Kana flag from Rain. James says Pan Kana Alliance. Jamie says, can we get a Pan Kana fusion? She would be the greatest fighter in Bellator history. Well, we talked about that a little bit. Rena Panchan, Dragon Ball, all these things. Who they're both big Dragon Ball fans, funny enough. So, and Go says, hey, talked about retreating backwards. Exactly. So she mentioned that herself. I didn't even mention it to her. So there we go. It was a good chat and very nice to hear. So Ru says, Kana Army rises. Kana Army rises. If I could do a Bane voice. And Jin says, Kana did KO Sugiyama. So that's good, right? That was very good. Yeah. Talk about retreating backwards in that rematch, Kana versus Suzuka. Suzuka came out real hot, and that fight only lasted about like 12 seconds or so, but Sugiyama wasted no time there. Came at her and then ate a clean right hand. But I mean, that stoppage was not, if you go back and watch that one, it was probably too soon if we're going to be honest, but she still landed that shot and put her down. So very impressive. I don't think Suzuka's ever been knocked out on the feet before, or at least, hit like that. So that's maybe the cleanest shot that she's taken to get there. But either way, yeah, I mean, it was good. A good shot from Conor for sure, Jin. But knockout it was a questionable stoppage, no doubt, as much as we love Conor. And I mean, she beat her in the first fight anyway, so hey. And thank you, Rue. Says that was a nice Bane voice. Appreciate it, as my voice after an hour gets a little bit harder. An hour of speaking. But so that is one of 3 fights on Bellator 281. I'm not going to go into these ones just for time's sake, as we're approaching 15 minutes left. I think I'm making real good time here. But also on that card, as you can see at flyweight, Kate Jackson versus Alina Kalinado. So that will be a solid one, I do think. And then strawweight, Sharapenko and Lanchana Green. So old Lanch from Tough 23 and a brief stint in Ryzen. She's coming back. Not coming back. I guess she fought twice last year, right? But taking on Sharapenko and Bellator. So that'll be fun to see. They're on the prelims. So look forward to those. And of course, you had to have Kate Jackson compete in London, right? So as we move on to the last set of fights here. I'm proud of myself for this kind of timing, I think. But UFC Vegas 54, kicking things off with strawweight bout between Verona Zhandiroba versus Angela Hill. My goodness, this fight has flown under the radar, hasn't it? I mean, a Verona fight should be getting some more praise and discussion, I think. But especially against Angela Hill, who the UFC has shown to favor a good bit. On the prelims, this is like the 4th fight of the night, maybe. So they're very low down there, which is shameful, again, because Verona is one of the best strawweights in the world. I believe Angela Hill is still ranked 2. I'd have to go and look at the rankings, but either way. Yeah. 1 in 4 in the last 5. I didn't realize that for Hill, but that does make sense. I guess when you look at Lemos, Torres, Watterson, Gadelia, and then the 1 win over Yoder there. And Verona is just a slight favorite. I guess that's about right, but I feel pretty comfortable with her chances here in this matchup. I mean, we know Verona Zhandiroba, one of the absolute greatest BJJ players in the sport today. I don't care what your gender is. She is absolutely phenomenal, a wizard on the ground. Essentially, typically only wins by submission when she wins. Sets up her grappling with her striking wonderfully. That's the only reason she typically strikes. I mean, she's shown it off more recently, of course. Obviously, the best example is her last win, which was against Kanako. That sad fight for me. That very bittersweet fight, because I'm a big fan of both of them. And then Amanda Ribas just couldn't quite impose her game the same way in that one, which was very impressive of Ribas to nullify it and keep things on the feet despite Zhandiroba's improved striking game. Angela Hill, always a very active striker, moves a lot, fairly tricky for some. I guess her record wouldn't indicate that recently, but starts off pretty strong and typically has always, still to this day, had issues with her takedown defense, and we even saw that in the Yoder win. So here against Zhandiroba, that is not good for her. That is not at all a good sign, and I do not think she's going to be able to finish Zhandiroba. She just is not that kind of fighter. Typically is Angela, who sets up the combinations that can really damage and, well, at least I wouldn't say not damage, but finish people. And someone like Verona, who's been pretty tough to hurt in her career so far. just a matter of time till she gets a hold of her and does what she does best. Doesn't matter what submission it is, she will find it once it's on the ground, I think. So if I was to tease a prediction there without giving one, I think this is a very favorable matchup for Verona. And even on the feet, I think she can have some pretty good success too. But there will come a time where this fight ends up in a clinch or a takedown scenario, and Zhandiroba is gonna work her magic, I think. So Go says he didn't know that this was happening. And here's his bad take of the day. Says he'll beat Lemos, but close fight, so result is fine. Hey, you're not alone in that thought. I think that Lemos did win that one, but I know a lot of people think the other way. So credit to Angela for putting up a fight, I guess, in that one, in that regard. So didn't end up in her favor, obviously. But at flyweight, we move on to Viviane Araujo for old Stamina, who has yet to return to us. Poor guy, I miss him so much. Taking on KGB, Andrea Lee. Pretty big fight here for Lee, much more so than Araujo, as she has gotten back to her winning ways and looking just phenomenal in these last two victories. And the odds near even. I find that kind of interesting. I would think that Andrea would be a very, very slight favorite there, but they're practically the same. VV coming off a 2 kg loss. And we know how good that Araujo can be and really is as a striker, very talented striker, moves very nice. She's very quick, has some good power on the end of her combinations and shots as well. But just can't keep it consistently throughout the entire fight. Fades mostly in the third round. I wouldn't even say as the fight goes on, but like once the third hits, it just is not, you don't see the same fighter as you saw earlier on in the fight. So in the beginning, probably going to win the round, and she could very well win the fight there, but it's going to be tough against this KGB who has really put it together recently, and not just on the feet with the striking that she's already possessed. That was very good. And, we saw that against, obviously, Cynthia Calvillo completely pieced her up in that one to earn the stoppage, even though Calvillo did not threaten very much with her takedowns, which she should have done. On the ground, we've seen Andrea look great too. And of course, that was against Shevchenko, which doesn't tell us a whole lot, but she's got that kind of improvement in her back pocket as well. So might be smart to mix it up and try and get Araujo there. No one's really had success or tried to in the fights. And I mean, that was the thing. That was the problem with that Montana De La Rosa victory, at least loss for Montana against Vivi, was that she didn't, for some reason, decided to, forget about her strength, which was her wrestling, and throw down with Araujo. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think it should be very fun. And if Andrea wins, you probably make her versus Grasso. I don't know. We'll see. But she's right at the top there for contention. That is for sure. So we shall see how it goes. As we have one more fight now. Speaking of Caitlin Chookagian, but first, Jen asked, can Araujo get to the ground? I mean, in theory, I guess she could, but I don't expect her to want to, Jen. She's always pretty comfortable on the ground. So, yeah, we shall see about that. But as I mentioned, Caitlin Chookagian welcoming Amanda Ribas back to flyweight. Very interesting how this one came together, as Ribas was, I don't think, wanting or looking to make a flyweight move, and who knows if she still is, but she is for now, and if she wins, I'm sure she'll stay around, because if she beats Caitlin, then she's right in the mix there, and I guess, hey, honestly, not a bad idea. Could get yourself a flyweight title shot quicker than a strawweight one at this point, so, I mean, not going to be easy. Caitlin Chookagian, always a tough fight for everybody. Great movement on her. Very high volume striker. no, not everybody's cup of tea. Improved grappling. Not improved grappling. I think she's always had it in her back pocket as well. But interestingly enough, slight favorite here against Hebos, who, in terms of finishing ability, everywhere she is much more dangerous. Big ass height advantage here in favor of Chukagian, and that might look pretty funny. 5'9" to 5'3", my goodness. But I guess, hey, Andrade was 5'1" against Chukagian, right? So that is what it is. But then the reach is not too off there. So for Amanda Hebos, I think that she can find success on the feet here. I mean, more likely to land more powerful, impactful shots. But she's going to have to, kind of get inside of the distance that Chukagian presents as she generally tries to fight long and rangy, which understandable. Whereas if Hebos gets on top of you, she's very, very good on top, very strong on top. I don't know if she'll be able to manage that the same with the size difference here because Chukagian is a former bantamweight. We're going, strawweight versus former bantamweight in this case. And again, I think underappreciated jiu-jitsu and grappling from Chukagian, but Hebos is very, very strong on top, not just with her grappling and submission ability and her control and all that, but she got some pretty lethal ground and pound as well. So for this fight, I think that will kind of be the story, is if Hebos can get in and get a hold of Chukagian, maybe not even to take her down, but just kind of make it gritty and get in her face a little bit, because Chukagian, you know what to expect with her. She's going to move around a lot, going to throw a lot at you. Maybe not hurt you so bad, but she's going to score points. The woman knows how to score points, take a lead. So you got to kind of find a way to prevent that. And for Hebos, the best way to do it is kind of make it ugly and get in there without taking anything too serious. So it's a very interesting matchup. As Alvin asked, does Hebos have a lot of weight to lose for weight cuts? I don't think so, Alvin. I've never heard of her having really issues with strawweight before, and seems pretty decently fit for that division, I would say, like frame-wise and everything. But Ghost says, does Caitlin's movement and range give her an advantage in this? I think so. I do think so. I mean, if you look at how, Martina was able to beat her, and I don't know if that's even the best example, because Martina, I don't think, very different styled strikers for sure, but longer strikers in Caitlin and Martina. Although in this case, more so just the legs, as you're looking at the heights rather than the reach with just two. I don't remember exactly what the measurements there were for Martina, but at least in terms of reach, in terms of height, she had the advantage. I know that. I think it does. I think it does slightly. As Ghost says, Hebos typically runs into counters when our opponent does not engage. Yeah, so there you go. Like, it's a very interesting matchup. Very interesting matchup, I think. As Jin says, does this make Hebos ranked at flyweight? She was ranked at strawweight after she beat PVZ. I mean, kind of a weird situation there. If she wins this one 100%, though, I mean, Caitlin is still in like the top 3. So no doubt about it in that case. If she plans on staying or if it's just an activity thing, like I was saying, we'll have to find out. But yeah. As Ghost says, Hebos is allergic to right hands, but I don't know if her opponent has a good right hand, though. That is fair. Wouldn't say it's something that stands out for Caitlin, that's for sure. So, yeah, well, I think we can leave it there, though, you guys. Nailing the time pretty solidly. Intriguing matchup. Could talk more about it, but I think it's just one we're just gonna have to wait and see, as I'm trying to hit my time there, and I'm pretty proud of that. There was a lot that went into this episode. My goodness, I mean, 30 minutes dedicated to the strawweight title fight, which is totally fair, but I'm feeling a little lightheaded. I need some food. Still a little bit on the central time here. I'm all over the place these days, but Central says, do you think this is a good card? I just closed the tab. I'd have to look at the whole thing. But we got Blachowicz and Rakic in the main event. I don't even remember what's on the rest of its intro, but sure it'll be fine. It'll be a fine watch. So, okay. Apologies, you guys. Anyway, we've reached the end of the road. Thank you, Scott. Catch you on the next one for sure. Don't forget, you guys, if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. All those things. It means a lot. It really goes a long way if you haven't already. Just a quick click. Does so much. Visit MMA.com for all your MMA needs. Follow me at @DrakeRiggs_ if you would like. On Twitter and Instagram. Mostly a Twitter guy, of course, but I'll post some pictures and whatnot on Instagram every now and then. As for the shameless plugs, don't miss the You Wanna Chat that is dropping in an hour. We'll have that out in approximately an hour. The video will be here on the channel, and the article stories support that as well on the actual website. The video will be in there too. You got it. You know where it is. Takes on Whaley in the rematch. UFC 275 next month, June 11th. Nearly a month away. Very exciting. And then also spoke with Queen Kana, Kazushi Kana, and that will be dropping tomorrow. She fights on Friday in London against Denise Keyholtz. So look forward to that. And yes, so people enjoyed the Fan Punch as well. A quick little return of a slideshow. So, all right, you guys, until next Monday, enjoy the weekend of action. Enjoy Invicta on Wednesday and everything else. Stay safe and stay sane, and we'll see you next time.